This workshop meeting of the Board of Trustees for Socorro ISD will come to order. The time is 5:31, and we've established a quorum. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody please join me in saying the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll continue with public comment. We do have one speaker. The board encourages comments from members of the public. However, the primary purpose of this meeting is to conduct district business. Therefore, to ensure the efficient conduct of this meeting, all speakers must comply with the following rules. Address the board at all times. Only persons who have timely signed up to speak will be called to speak. Comment should pertain to district issues or business, and in accordance with board policy, respect the rights of others, display civility and decorum, and refrain from using harmful and offensive content such as defamatory, obscene, or fighting words or gestures. Complaints will be referred to a grievance policy. Do not engage in conduct that disrupts or delays this meeting. Each speaker is legally responsible for the content and consequences of their own statements. In order to have enough time to complete all items on the agenda, each speaker will be given 5 minutes, and if a person speaks on multiple agenda items, not more than a total of 5 minutes. All speakers, including those signed up to speak on agenda items, will be called to speak during open forum or to the specific agenda item if they have signed up for one. The presiding officer will take all necessary measures to ensure that order and decorum is preserved during the meeting. We expect all persons to promptly comply with the presiding officer's directives. By law, the board cannot discuss or act on any item which is not posted on the agenda. Thank you for your cooperation. Let's proceed to open forum. Mr. Hill.
Hello, how you guys doing today? Mr. Carmen, Mr. Nahara, Ms. Nahara, Maribel Macias, Pablo, Richard, Alice Gardea, Paul Garrett. How we doing? Okay, what I want to go on is what I've been talking about is I got an update to what other districts have been doing as it regards to their bus drivers. Now we have 4 districts over $20 an hour and higher. San Eli just raised their starting wages for bus drivers up to $20 an hour. Fabens is at $20 an hour to start. Canutillo is at $22 an hour to start. And then Isleta is at $20 an hour to start. Now, there's still a couple of more districts, but we're at $17 an hour. This district wouldn't give people over 15 years of service, so what that means is our midpoint is at 2028. So what that means is we could have 30-year-old drivers making $20.28 while San Eli has 0 years of experience making 20 years. Canutillo has 0 years of experience making $22 an hour. Now, what I was hoping you guys would look at is putting us at a 407. And what 407 is, it's the same as what the mechanics are getting. That starting wage is $18.76. That midpoint is $22.88. So with going by what we did and only giving them up to 15 years, the highest you will only be giving anybody is around $22.88. I think you need to look at this. We need to, every district is trying to keep their drivers. We should try to keep ours too. So I hope you guys look at this and going forward and consider this on the compensation plan. I also agree that we should go higher than 2%. This district's fund balance is almost identical to what the fund balance was last year. And we went for a 6%. And I don't understand why we can't at least do a 4% and a $1,500 bonus. We need to look into that and see what that costs and think about doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Okay, so we'll continue with the agenda item. 4A, presentation of the 2023-2024 Employee Compensation Plan. Dr. Gonzalez and Ms. Stiles.
Good evening, Board President, Mr. Nájera, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Carmen. We're going to start with a workshop presentation on compensation plan for 23-24 school year, which include the administration recommendations. So as you can see on the screen, and we're going to start with some compensation workshop definitions with some vocabulary, so we start being on the same page and using the same narrative. So these definitions is going to be what is teacher market comparison, what is support staff market comparison, what is estimated budget impact, and what encompass benefit and services, because that's the not monetary included on the salary. So it's important to go over those definitions before we start the workshop. But from now on, we're going to have our awesome director, Selena Stiles, that oversee the compensation area in HR. But please feel free to ask us any questions to any of the HR department, and including Vicky Perez and finance. Also, we have been working in collaboration very close to both departments and putting this together. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, President Nájera, Dr. Carmen, members of the board. Selena Stiles, Director of HR for Support Personnel. And the presentation I just handed you will be the second part of this presentation. It was an item I was asked to present kind of outside of the timeline to give you all the copies, so I wanted to present that copy to you. So in addition to the agenda, you'll have the second presentation, which you have a copy of there in front of you. So some of the definitions we're going to go over are market data. So market data is benchmark data that's used to make informed decisions about the organization's compensation programs and pay practices compared to those offered by our peers. The next one is the midpoint. So a midpoint in a pay range is the market value or target market value for the position, and that's within our competitive peer group. The pay grades are the individual levels within each pay family. So for example, you have the administrative pay family. Within that, you have 101 to 110. Those are the pay grades within that pay family. The placement scale, we use those for placement purposes, for new hires, to grant years of experience, and at this point, it is up to the midpoint. And then, of course, benefits. And we put that because we're going to go through some of the benefits, but the benefits we're going to refer to are non-wage compensation that employers provide to their workers in addition to their salary and wages. So some of that is through our benefit package and some of the things that you all have been very generous with for employees. So we felt it was important to share that. So this is our current teacher salary schedule in comparison with Isleta and El Paso. And it's at the 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 mark. So as you can see, one of our neighboring districts will wait until we approve something, and then they'll kind of go a little bit above on the starting point. But as you go through the years, we do pay more, okay? Now, this is the next slide I want to share with you, and I'm kind of color coordinating things because I will be presenting a 2%, 3%, and 4% cost. So everything in green represents 2%, everything in blue will represent 3%, and everything in red will represent the 4%. So this is what the teacher salary schedule will look like if a 2% increase is approved. It unfortunately is still in comparison with Isleta and El Paso's current because we don't know what they're going to do yet. I kind of asked around. Heard maybe 2% here and there, but nobody would really solidify any of the details for me, okay? This is what the teacher's salary schedule will look like at a 3%. Again, we are comparing their current salary schedules with a proposed. And then the 4%. Okay. This next slide is, again, utilizing that 2% increase, but in also including the district contribution to the benefits, the $6,900 annual amount that the district contributes on behalf of employees for benefits. So kind of putting that into perspective, again, with Isleta and El Paso's current salaries and their current contributions, if you go across the board, you can kind of see what 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 will look like. This is a graph of what that looks like, and it's just a visual so you can see the starting point and then those kind of key years, 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25. This is the 3%. So it's that original pay scale I showed you with the benefit contribution again included, and then the visual graph of that. The 4%, and then what that visual also looks like. Okay. So some of the benefits and services that are made available through the district and through things you all have generously approved, but it's a non-compensation or monetary value specifically given to employees, is the employee health clinic. We have reduced co-pays and services there. The district pharmacy, we have lower deductible amounts and lower out-of-pocket amounts. So as an example, and this is just one, trying to compare apples to apples a little bit, if you look at deductibles, out-of-pocket max, and the co-insurance, and I think that's important to see because you might have a district that looks like their deductible is a little bit lower, but when you look at their co-insurance, it's much higher than ours. So it's kind of a broader picture of some of the benefits that are offered. I know, Ms. Gardea, you at our last meeting requested some information on the support staff. Similar to teachers, unfortunately, it's a little bit more difficult to do an exact graph. However, we do have the non-exempt pay group and what that looks like in comparison to the market. So for clerical and technical employees, the employee pay, which is what the actual pay is in comparison to the market, we are 3% above the market, okay? For instructional support, which is our instructional aides, we are 10% above the market, and for auxiliary personnel, we are 11% above the market. That's based on employee pay. For the pay grade midpoint for each of those levels in comparison to the market value, we're 6%, 25%, and 15% above market. And for the pay grade minimum to that market value, we are 7%, 20%, and 13% above market. Okay. So the estimated budget impact for a 2% increase, I know Ms. Bettis provided you all totals last time, so I kind of wanted to break it down what that looks like. So for teachers, nurses, librarians, and counselors, you're looking at $3.5 million. And for all other pay families, it's 2.5. So it's a total of $6,067,422. For a 3% increase, you're looking at 5.3 for teachers, nurses, librarians, and counselors, and 3.7 for all other pay families, for a grand total of 9.1 million. And for the 4% increase, again, 7 million for teachers, nurses, librarians, and counselors, 5 million for all other pay families, for a total of 12.1 million. So we will be proposing the 2% increase for teachers, nurses, librarians, and counselors, and for all other pay families as well that are included here. Do you all have any questions on this first presentation?
Ms. Stiles?
Yes, sir.
On the 2%, did you all consider the inflation rate?
I'm sorry?
Did you all consider the inflation rate?
Inflation, so I'll be honest with you, Mr. Guerra, based on the increases that we gave this last school year and with a lot of the retention payments and so forth, we just kind of went with 2%. Again, the board, and that's why we wanted to give you the 2, 3, and 4, so you all were informed with what that cost, so you all can make that recommendation.
So every year that I've been on the board, where we start off at 1 or 2%. I think one year, a couple years ago, was that I think administration recommended 5%, which was last year. You know, we have the extra funds. I know that's going to be the next topic. But I'm always looking at our ADA growth, see how much we're growing from year to year. Our tax base is always growing, our growth is always growing. We are a growing district. And we have like $94, $97 million on the rainy day fund. We've always been good. I believe that's for 120 days. We always had good money in the rainy day fund. So obviously, I'd like to go higher than 2%, but I was just wondering how you guys came up with 2%.
And that was one of the recommendations that TASB did come back with. They did give us different scenarios, so we're presenting the different amounts, the costs, so that you all have that information.
Thank you. I guess, I'm sorry, one last question. What are we expecting to grow on our ADA?
I don't know, Ms. Perez.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Vicki Perez, Chief Financial Officer. Last year's ADA, I believe, was calculated at 44,500, more or less. Right now, that is, the calculations that I'm using for ADA is 45,996. So an increase of about 1,000 just on ADA, not enrollment.
Yes?
So with that, I'm going to ask you some more trivial questions, sorry. And has spawned some thoughts in me. So with that, fund balance, I know we've talked about that. Thank you, bring the computer. So for 2%, what does our fund balance look like? Then I'll ask for 3% and 4%. So what does that look like, and also number of days?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but
Okay.
based on that information that we have given to you, the 6, 9, 12, and 15, $3 million would be, I'd have to look at that just really quickly. But I can get that for you here actually very shortly. So do you want to give me a little bit of time and I can get you that?
Of course. And I think it's kind of in the same line of questioning, which is, I know that we're going conservative with the ADA, 45,996 for this coming year. Same thing with the fund balance. That way we truly get a clear picture of what the 2%, 3%, and 4% would do for us as we move in. Again, still waiting for legislation to finalize.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Stiles?
Yes, ma'am.
Now a question for you. I know that you had where we fell as far as with the market. Did we look at our bus drivers? I know that Mr. Hill came in front of us and said that there have been some changes. So where do we fall with the market with our bus drivers?
So our bus drivers, if I'm not mistaken, are 4% above market, specifically, bus drivers.
And is that with the new changes, or those were historical?
That is what we have it at right now. So that data will not be reported until next year because that's something they're barely going to be implementing.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next presentation, which you all have the paper copy in front of you. So I was asked to bring forward the information we presented on the years of service through the maximum. So the information that I'm going to present includes, and I don't know if not all of you were on the board, but I'll kind of give a quick rundown. There were 3 options that were presented. The first option was for all non-exempt employees. The second option was for exempt employees that are paraprofessional and auxiliary only, which is handful less than 20 employees. And then the third option was to include those two groups and then include the rest of the exempt employees that would be impacted with this request. So I have the information for non-exempt and the exempt paraprofessional and auxiliary, and that's the information I'm going to share with you today. So the all existing non-exempt employees are the clinic. There's employees in the clinic, paraprofessional. There are some professional administrative employees that are non-exempt, some technology employees, paraprofessional, and auxiliary. The exempt employees that are paraprofessional and auxiliary are also included in this total. It would be effective July 1st. We would keep the current placement scales for all new hires, which the maximum would be the midpoint. And the salary increase that you all approve would be implemented first. And then any additional employees that are impacted would be adjusted or impacted after. The budget impact with a 2% increase is $851,258 with 97 cents. Out of 2,337 employees in that group, 511 would be impacted. The next slide is the same group of employees, same kind of information, but with a 3% increase. And that budget impact is $692,091 with 80 cents, and you have 439 employees impacted. And then with the 4% increase, it goes to $553,533 with 8 cents, and 368 employees will be impacted. And again, that does not include the exempt employees. Okay. Any questions?
Questions? No, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Stiles.
Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on to item 4B, update on ESSER 3 budget. Dr. Starkey, please.
Good evening, President Nájera, members of the board, and Dr. Carmen. For a couple of the new faces that we have, I'm Adam Starkey. I'm the Director of State and Federal Programs for the district. Okay, so that's just for you all new board, okay, members. Okay, so what I'm before you tonight, I'm going ahead to present you with the ESSER 3 budget update as we go ahead and pull through to our final destination on the ESSER train, if you will. Okay, ESSER 3, we know that we had a 1, we had a 2, okay, and we have a 3. And this is the final one remaining in the ESSER series that began with 1 in the 2021 school year. And the 23-24 school year is going to be the last year for that, so this will denote the end of the ESSER era, which will have gone 4 fiscal years. And throughout this time, we've allocated, as a district, we've allocated and expended ESSER funds on initiatives and projects that have been undertaken in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay. And our ESSER 3 specifically, as the last one standing, was awarded with a 3-year period, which was 21-22, 22-23, 23-24. And after all of this, as of June 15th, which was last Thursday, okay, I just want to go over what we have as we're going forward into the final year. We had approximately $27,299,889 remaining. I can tell you we don't run the reports every single day, but if I did, the number would be different every day. Okay, so that's what we what my accountants and I snapshotted, okay, right there last Thursday, so we could be as current as possible. Okay, and we want to make sure that we note that the above remaining amount is fully allocated and it's fully earmarked for completion of initiatives and projects that are tied to the original plan of action that was created at the time that we were made eligible of this money. And that was for ESSER 3, that was prior to the 21-22 school year. Okay. So right now, we have the current, which is June 2023, and then through June 2024. So, of course, our fiscal year starts in July, but we are currently wrapping up things in June, and a lot of things, I will tell you that, well, I don't want to say a lot, but there is payroll that for this fiscal year that's not quite done, and certain other reconciliations that are not quite done. Okay, so this would be more than 12 months remaining, and some of it is right about at your 12-month period. So first, one of the things that we've done over the several years is we've had district-wide curriculum and instructional programs. We've always had a few, but with ESSER, we were really able to address learning loss through these years. Ms. Borrego and team really led the way on this, having more instructional programs, that were district-wide available, that we just didn't have to do like, oh, well, we're just going to do this in certain grades, or we're just going to do this here and there. We were able to really move forward and have an instructional program on steroids with all of to attack all the learning loss with all of the programs that we have. And that also includes some really robust district-wide professional development sessions that we touched a lot of people with that we had never been able to do before. And as we continue to battle learning loss, we want to continue to be able to, we have money set aside that's specific to be able to continue these initiatives to completion. And you might say that in education, we're never done. But we may never actually get to completion. But with this funding, we want to be able to see projects like this through and use it to attack things as learning loss as much as possible. Social emotional, it was a big thing. It's still a big thing. It's going to be a big thing. And we are continuing with such as Rethink Education and Capturing Kids' Hearts, Project Vita expansion, Care Solace, Healthy Body, Strong Mind. And we've got $1 million allocated for all of that. That's also a continuance. We have already had these in place. We want to continue. Campus allocation, one of the things that we did in the very beginning is we said over a period of 3 years, what we would do is that we would allow through a supplemental amount of money that we established to get down to the campuses, because while we talk about academic and social emotional needs on a wide district range, we also have, if you go down to the campus level, you've got different needs there at each one. Every single one is different, and we all know that. And so being able to give them monies to work with, that's paid off a lot in the academic area also, because they've been able to do some instructional materials, purchase some stuff that they felt they wanted. Lots of extra duty pay for lots more high dosage tutoring has been able to come in to play with that. And also some other expansions in social emotional initiatives. And that kind of comes back to the fact that 20% of ESSER 3 in particular was supposed to be reserved for learning loss. I believe we've probably gotten past that already, but all of those things factor back into academics and whatnot. And then we also have payroll projections for our ESSER 3 funded staff. We have ESSER 3 funded staff in many areas that comprise academics, comprise social, emotional, sometimes even infrastructure type things that play back to academics, like the expansion we had for computer tech, for example, because of so many more. What did we go from 20,000 to 60,000 devices in 1 year and stuff like that? So there are quite a few positions that we still have. And of course, payroll's always behind. So this is like stuff that we still haven't had yet. And what we do, what my accounting staff and I do, which it's not a large staff, it's a couple of guys and me, we go ahead and what we do is we make sure that whenever we're trying to show what's earmarked, what's allocated, we're projecting out all the way to June 30th, 2024 with the staff that is there. So we're not just saying, oh, well, this is what this is worth right now. The reason we're getting that number is we're trying to make sure that we reserve it and make sure that we pay these people as we've said we were going to. So that's where that number comes from. It's all the way out from right now. A bit of a complex accounting process, but well worth it because we can become very accurate. Also, and I've been able to work with Dr. Carmen with maintenance and operations. We have our facilities upgrades that we are doing, and from the very beginning of the plan, we always had this in mind that we were going to do this, and it's moving. You know, HVAC, LED lighting, water fountain projects, and we still have we have about $8.3 million, and to my understanding, a good portion of that is about to go up for your approval on Wednesday night. So we're continuing to move on there. That is, of course, we talk about academic, social, emotional. We also have to look at our physical safety, you know, prepare for a response. I mean, God forbid anything like this ever happens again, but we want to keep people healthy regardless of it's a pandemic or not. This will help to do that. And then finally, I do want to say that through the years, you know, the EPSL, the emergency paid sick leave, I know that you all have, this board has really been very, very kind and generous, and to have made that possible for our employees another year. Not all the districts did it. I found that out in my own home. You know, when we both got COVID at the same time. So the point being there, we have been processing that through and getting that finished. And then also our substitute teacher pay, that's another big, huge, like with academics, we've done that for 2 years now. You know, Ms. Borrego was really instrumental in that, starting off, to raise substitute teacher pay, because that's continuity of services, right? And to draw more people to come. We've been doing that now for a couple of years, and ESSER has paid for that as well. So there is some money that's left there. I just want to say that that ending part there is still stuff that we're not done with. There's still payroll that needs to take place, and there's still EPSL, what is it called, like processing and things like that need to take place. So that number is there for transparency, but I need to really be clear that once we get all the reconciliations and the payroll done, that's probably going to be gone. Okay, so when we come to the end of that, we're coming to the end of a long road. We're proud of many things that we've done, and that's by our students, done well by that, and you all have done well by us as employees, and the ESSER funds through the years have helped to take care of that. With what we have left, we are just going to go ahead, and the intent is to bring these projects to completion, and the rest, and the money is all earmarked and allocated to do so, and we're looking forward to serving our district, our students in the 23-24 school year with what's remaining. So I thank you all for listening to me and for allowing me to come up and talk about that. Mm-hmm.
Question?
Hello, Mr. Starkey. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, ma'am.
Forgive my questions if they're out there. I'm still learning.
It's okay.
And so,
That's what we're here for.
how many employees do we still have that are being paid from ESSER?
I don't know. I want to say that when we looked at it the last time, I think that it's between about maybe in the higher, above 150, maybe close to 175, somewhere in that area.
And are these people that we're trying to get into the district so that they don't, like, what's their plan, or what's the goal for the people that are currently being paid out of ESSER funds?
With the people that are currently being paid out of it, I would probably, on that one, I would defer to human resources, because there's different types of things that are being done, and I'd feel more comfortable
I'm just
passing
wondering
that
where
one.
we started and how many have we absorbed? Because it's 10 million that we have allocated for
Yes,
this
ma'am.
coming school year?
So we are working through attrition. If a general ed position becomes available, we are sliding those individuals into those positions and closing the ESSER positions. But as Dr. Starkey mentioned, there's still a couple of hundred that still are in that range. There are some positions that we may not have a way to transition them to. And we'll be sending those notices in July at the start of the year, just reminding them, remember, this is ESSER funded. You may not have a position at the end of this school year, so they can start looking, and once they're hired, we close that position. We don't rehire to kind of perpetuate the issue.
Okay. And then the 8 million that we have for HVAC, LED lighting, water, I know that, Mr. Starkey, you said that ESSER was allocated for learning loss. Is that correct?
It's allocated partially for learning loss. One of the statements that's in that particular statute is that 20% of ESSER 3 needed to be allocated for learning loss, but in the total amount that we received, there's been many other things that we've been able to do with it, Ms. Gardea. And these improvements to our facilities, such as the HVAC improvements and water fountains and whatnot, are part of the effort for next generation safety for all our students and really all of our all of our staff and community, really.
Okay. And I guess my wondering is, and y'all can answer for my clarity, is that not money that we can get from someplace else and use this money for our teachers? Is that not how it works?
Well, I wouldn't be able to articulate if we could get it from somewhere else or not knowing the other funding sources, but I just know that it is allowable as an expense to have it here, and we've already done quite a bit of work there, committed quite a bit to it, and that was kind of one of the goals from the beginning. But where else it could come from, I can't, and I don't have the authority or the expertise to answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Dr. Starsky, for the ESSER Fund streets, when we started off, we had what, $64 million?
For
ESSER Fund street?
ESSER 3 was direct expenditures, excluding indirect cost, was about 90.8 million, somewhere in there. So we've got that down to about it's getting close to 3/4 of the way down.
I guess my main question is, on ESSER 1 and ESSER 2, we've gotten some money to use it for stipend because it's free money. Why didn't we allocate some money aside, or maybe administration can answer this, why didn't we allocate some money aside also for stipends, for retention, whatever we want to call it?
Because I guess through the years in both the ESSER grants, including ESSER 3 money, which has been used in the past, we have you all as a board, and we've been able to do this, and it's really been great on y'all's part, and we've been able to facilitate this. We've actually paid out almost $32 million in retention payments the last 2 years. And it's been quite good for many people I know. But at this point, as far as Mr. Guerra, you asking if we can allocate some for that, I would have to say that there is no more money to allocate for that because we are down to what we are now.
I understand, but we should have allocated some money for stipends because this is money, free money for retention. We're not going to get any more money next year. So I understand how we're allocating the money, but I think we're doing a disservice to our employees. I think we should have kept some of that money for a stipend. I believe if we look at $1,000 stipend, we're looking at what, slightly about under $6 million. Was that correct, Mrs. Bettis? Then you present to us 2% was $2,000 was 14. Is that?
So to answer your question, sir, yes, you're correct. However, we do have grant periods that we have to spend it within. So we can say if the grant is up until 2023, we can only spend within that period. So we can't like save some of that money to use in a future time.
You said the money is spent?
the money needs to be spent within the grant period. So if it ends on September 2023, then we would have to only spend up to that time right there.
I guess my question was, why don't we allocate some money? Like we did in ESSER Fund 1 and ESSER 2, we allocated some money. Why don't we consider doing a stipend for ESSER 3? For retention or
That-
Dr. Carmen?
If I interject real quick, I think, Dr. Starkey, if I recall correctly, the district did allocate some ESSER 3 funding for retention stipends, but I want to say the board approved a larger amount last year, leaving no remaining funds in that budget. Is that accurate?
That would be accurate, sir, because we did pay out in ESSER 3 a substantial amount of money to cover the $2,500 stipend that took place last year, and Mr. Guerra, and then of course we had the $2,000 one the year before, and that touched ESSER 3. That touched ESSER 3 quite a bit after ESSER 2, so we could take care of that. Now, I want to go back really quick to what Mrs. Perez said. Also, we've been careful on this, and we're on a good path, and at this point, since it is our last year, and we knew 3 years out, we don't want to spend the money not in a good way. We want to spend it in an allowable way and in a way that everything can balance and everything can get hit. But we have a finite period where we can do that. And we wouldn't have wanted to get caught not spending at a good pace. You know, we wouldn't have wanted to do that. And at this point, there were no more retention payments allocated before, because all of that had really, there was much that was taken place on that before. And at this point, what is left are the projects that we are trying to bring to completion and to continue.
If I can add something to Ms. Cardea's question about allocating to other funds on those projects. One of the things with federal programs is that construction is not allowed for any grant. So this was the only grant that I have ever seen that construction was allowed. And so considering this is federal funds from the government, we allocated those funds so that we can upgrade some of those, the HVAC services, some of our LED projects, which will in turn generate a savings on the local budget side for years to come. So that was one of the strategic goals that we used too, to make sure that we're not just using it, correctly, but to benefit the district as well for many years to come, for that matter. And if I may answer your question that you had asked about fund balance for days, it cost $1.3 million per day to operate the district. And so when it comes down to the 2%, 3%, and 4%, and how much that cost in terms of fund balance days, it's 2.3 days for each additional percentage. So from 2.5, that's 4.5 days of fund balance. For 3%, we're at 6.8 days. And for 4%, that is 9.1 days. Just keep in mind that the 2% is already embedded in the budget, and that fund balance total that we're having to take out to balance our revenues and our expenditures is a total of 15 million, which is about 11.5 days.
The other question that I have, and please teach us, as far as we're talking about the ESSER retention stipend. For each $1,000 stipend, what does that cost what does it cost us as far as with ESSER money, if we were to give $1,000 to every employee?
That was $3 million for every active, was it 6.5? Yes. I'm sorry, excuse me.
Each $1,000 that we have paid out comes out to an equivalent of $6.5 million. And again, the two huge ones that were given out the previous 2 years have come out to almost $32 million total.
Dr. Starkey, with that, the reason I think the 10 million caught our eye is because that's about 39% of the remaining ESSER balance, which is for payroll projections, ESSER-funded staff. My question to that is, I know that you went with a fine-tooth comb to look at about 175 employees. Do we know that the percent spent, is there budget dust there as far as vacancies that are vacant that were projected for? Last year for 22-23, was there a percent not spent? That way, do we know that 10 million is pretty close?
It's pretty close, and another thing is that I do have to say that the part that there were some payroll redirections that were not spent, and those have gone right into the EPSL that we've had this year and went to help pay for the retention payment that we did in the previous year. So there were some redirections from that, but we moved it in to take care of those.
And for the EPSL, that's just for this year. That finishes this year, or is it going to continue for next year?
I wouldn't be able to comment, but to make sure, but the understanding was that it would not, it wouldn't continue, no.
For this year?
Yeah, my understanding was not.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Dr. Starkey.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Yes, sir. Okay, with there being no more business for the board, we can adjourn at 6:16.